Ross John Greer is a member of the Scottish Parliament and the chairman of the Scottish Cross-Party Group for Tibet. With his election in 2016, he became the youngest member of the Scottish Parliament. Ross has been a vocal advocate for social justice, human rights, environmental issues, and has consistently supported Tibetan human rights and self-determination. So Ross, thank you for being here with us today. So you've just come out of an audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and this is your first meeting with him. So tell me, how did that go? How do you feel now?
I feel incredibly blessed that this was one of, if not the single greatest honour of my life. Not just for me to meet with His Holiness personally, but to have the honour of passing on the best wishes of his many, many friends in Scotland, including those who still have such fond memories of his visits to our country some years ago now.
Right. So, but this is also your first visit to India. So I'd like to ask you, what is your purpose of visit?
So I'm here on behalf of the Scottish Parliament's support group for Tibet to strengthen the relationship, the friendship that we have with the Central Tibetan Administration, with the Tibetan Parliament, and with many of the non-governmental organisations and campaign groups that we work with. We've been very honoured in Scotland to have both the current Sikyong and his predecessor, Lobsang Sangye, come to visit us in Scotland. And last November, we had a delegation from Parliament led by the Honourable Speaker Kempo, and they came to Scotland as part of a study tour to learn about how other parliaments work, especially the role of speakers. So I organised events for them in Scotland where they met with former speakers and deputy speakers of our parliament, including my predecessor as the chair of our support group for Tibet. And we wanted to build on that relationship and for us to learn from some of the wonderful things that the administration here does. We've spoken a lot about education policy and schools, for example, and I will be visiting TCV later today.
So talking about the Central Tibetan Administration, you said you've met with Sikyong or the Speaker or other members of the Tibetan Parliament in exile. So by now you must have a general impression of the CTA. What do you think?
Obviously, the dominant theme of our meetings this week has unfortunately been the United States decision to freeze much of the funding that went to essential programs for the Tibetan community and to the Central Tibetan Administration. So what I have been keen to understand is how we in Scotland can provide practical help and support. For example, we visited your National Library and spoke to the director there about the programme to make digital copies of many of your manuscripts and historic documents. This is something that we have taken a long time to do in Scotland as well. So when I return home, I will be speaking to our National Library and our National Record Centre to see if there is any help and support that we can provide through that to your library to make sure that for all of history now, there will be a digital copy, a preserved copy of Tibet's many incredibly important historic manuscripts and documents.
Right, so talking about the Scottish Parliament, being a member of the Scottish Parliament, what do you think is the status of support for Tibet in the Scottish Parliament? Do you think there is a potential growth in terms of support?
There is growing awareness of the occupation of Tibet and of the wider threat that China poses, not just in its oppression of the peoples of Tibet, of Hong Kong, the Uyghur people, and of their own people in China. But China presents many great challenges for us in Scotland. For example, our capital city, Edinburgh, wanted to enter into a twinning arrangement, a friendship arrangement with a city in Taiwan. And that was almost completed. And then the Chinese threatened to ban all of their university students from attending Scottish universities. Some of our world famous universities like Glasgow and Edinburgh universities are financially dependent on the fees paid by these Chinese students. So China was able to threaten the whole of Scotland's university sector to prevent something as simple as a friendship agreement between Edinburgh and a city in Taiwan. For those of us who had been warning about the threat that China poses for many years, this was an example that we were able to use with our colleagues to prove that this threat is very real and that it's happening now. And as a result of situations like that, it is not the only incident, as a result of situations like that, a great many of my colleagues who previously were not as aware of the situation either in Tibet or the wider oppression, the transnational repression of the Chinese regime, are now much more aware of it. Because of course our Parliament is not responsible for foreign affairs. That is the responsibility of the United Kingdom Parliament in London. So many of my colleagues had simply not been aware of these problems up until situations such as what we faced with our universities. But they were very, very excited to hear that I would be coming here to meet His Holiness, and every one of the other members of Parliament I spoke to asked me to pass on their best wishes and to tell His Holiness that he is in their prayers and the people of Tibet are in their prayers.
So as my last question, you have spoken up for Tibet, you've met with a lot of Tibetans by now. So what more or what different do you think we as in Tibetans can do in terms of advocacy for Tibet?
I think the strong opportunity that presents itself now is an unfortunate one. In Scotland, we have a large and growing Hong Konger population because of Hong Kong's history as a British colony. And we have found that since the end of democracy in Hong Kong, that many people from Hong Kong who now live in Scotland are very keen to work with our Tibetan community and those of us who support the Tibetan community. So I think there's an opportunity for us across the world to build these links between all the peoples who are suffering under the oppression of the CCP and the regime in Beijing. So what I would encourage my Tibetan friends to do is to make common cause, to build deeper friendships with the Uyghur people, with people from Hong Kong, with Chinese dissidents, because China is a strong adversary. It is one of the most powerful nations on earth, and it's only if we all work together that we can resist that oppression. We are starting to do that in small ways in Scotland by building friendships together, by supporting each other's campaigns. For example, a few years ago when the Winter Olympics were hosted by China, we worked together, our Tibetan community, our Hong Konger community and members of Parliament, to convince the Scottish Government to boycott the Winter Olympics and to not send a representative to them. I think it is so important when we are facing such a powerful adversary that we all work together and to build these common links.
So that is all. Thank you so much, Ross, for sitting down with us despite your busy schedule. I hope you continue your support for Tibet and for human rights worldwide.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time.